there is no doubt technology has become part of our lives and in all aspects, and aging healthily and remaining functional, as Joe has pointed out, functionality, independence, etc., are probably the greatest metric of whether we're going to make a difference or not. And one might argue that if an individual can remain functional, active, and independent, then that may be the best endpoint that we think about in so many ways. COVID and the pandemic certainly has changed things and shown us what technology can do. I would also add one caution. I'm going to put my hat on as a CEO and as an employer. There are a lot of employees who are actually asking to come back. And let us not overlook, while they've been connected, while they've been engaged, they actually are asking to be socially engaged back into the workspace, if not full-time, certainly for a certain amount of time. So we have to remind ourselves that there's a balance between human interaction and technology enabling that communication, and they're not necessarily completely replaceable. At least that's what we're seeing from employees. Interested to see how other work environments see this. As we think about this discussion and the outline that Joe gave us, I'm not going to repeat his excellent discussions, but I think equity came up frequently, accessibility came up frequently, affordability came up frequently, and thank you for pointing out. I personally didn't even appreciate that even today, how unaffordable things like hearing aids might still be. And so it does raise the question, as we keep adding technological options, and yet existing technologies that do work, such as hearing aids, are still not accessible to significant parts of our population, then are we contributing to this haves and have-nots divide, let alone not just the US perspective as was raised, but are we thinking about this as a global commission, and what are the needs in emerging markets, developing markets, and maybe the solutions that we're suggesting not only may not work in those markets, but maybe they have solutions in other markets outside North America, outside Western Europe, that may be more applicable to us. We have touched on reimbursement, but it still brings me back to the question I raised. Is there something to be learned from single-payer national health systems, where a single payer does pay across the spectrum and the whole course of life, and are there different models as we think about this? We touched a little bit on interface between technology and biology in both directions. We've talked a lot about, appropriately, about positioning, branding, and thinking about technology not as a badge to wear, identifying an individual as older or old, but as a badge to wear something that's cool. We all think of a digital watch is cool, but would not necessarily think of that as a monitoring device for an older person as cool just because it looks that way or is sold that way, as Tatachi's point in terms of how we market this. There's a very robust discussion around biases, the types of data sets that we might be able to have access to, the underrepresentation of certain subgroups from all of this, and all of this has to be thought about. We touched on communities, the role of communities, and the role of cooperatives, to use one of the terms that we used. I also agree, Beth, that the dignity of risk is a very critical, and I think it's very well stated. And to summarize to this, I think in terms of almost leaving ourselves with more homework to think about is, how do we move forward from here? We raised a lot of questions, as is normal for this type of engagement. We get some great points put forward. We get a lot of questions raised that need to be thought through. Not only individually, but in an integrated manner. But how do we move forward from here? And ultimately, how does this work and the roadmap that collectively the whole commission is writing actually inform a way forward to get information? Can indeed technology change human behavior at a population level? We know it can do it at an individual level. Can it change behavior at the population level? And ultimately, will it make a difference to at the population level, if indeed it's deployed and if indeed we can figure out how to deploy it and get acceptance to it? So a lot of questions on that side. My last comment would be the issue of individual rights, ownership of data, ownership of what's coming out of this is not unique to the aging population. It's applicable to all aspects and all age groups. Having said that, as a former clinical researcher and clinical trialist, is it time for us to rethink all the way down to not just using sensors or something as a component of a trial, but we still design trials the same way? Is it time to rethink how to design clinical trials and ultimately even cohort studies, globally connected cohort studies in all sorts of ways that we haven't been able to do, but now's the time to launch them and actually move this field forward even faster. So let me leave with that question and hand over to Tachi to bring today's session forward. And I certainly will appreciate it, Tachi. It's 4 a.m. here.
Thank you, Mahmoud, for your expert sharing of the session today and for all the participants and the really interesting and exciting discussion. Some of you have stayed all 4 hours today and heard both the basic science part and the technology part of this discussion. Tomorrow, we're going to go into the area of engineering technologies, mechanical design, implementation technologies to enhance mobility and functionality of the elderly, and certainly welcome all of you in this. One thing that strikes me about both sessions today, and it's a sort of a common theme, that is, in the morning session, we talked about aging being the strongest risk factor for age-related diseases, not surprisingly. But actually, solving the disease might be best addressed by solving the aging issue, addressing aging as the problem, not necessarily diabetes as the problem. That if you solve the issues related to aging, then you can solve many of the problems that are medical in nature. It seems to me that's also potentially applicable to technology. That if we look at technology as something that is if we look at the elderly as the object of technology, that it may solve larger technology issues for larger groups of people beyond just the elderly. And so looking at the world from the elderly's perspective, which unfortunately I am doing increasingly with each year, can actually change the way we view the world. And that's the perspective that I think we hope we can get from this meeting, that the problem of the elderly is not the problem of the elderly. The problem of the elderly is the problem of what will soon become 40% of the population of the world. And therefore, it's really solving the problem of the world. And hopefully that will be a theme that will carry forward in tomorrow's session. Thank you all for participating today. And we certainly invite you to the next two sessions. The next one is on implementation sciences, and the last one is on opportunities and gaps. And concluding from the meeting today, again, I want to reiterate my thanks to all the people at the National Academy of Medicine who work so hard to put this meeting together, Johanna and Maureen and others who've been integrally involved in putting this meeting. And Victor, thank you for your stewardship of this very important initiative. It's been really tremendously gratifying to me to see it coming to where it is today, and looking forward to further discussion tomorrow. Victor, any last words?
Yes. First of all, a minor correction. The meeting's on July the 17th, which is day after tomorrow. Now, it may be different in different parts of the world. If you're in Japan, maybe it's different. But at least in U.S. time, it's day after tomorrow. We welcome all of you there. But I think importantly, I don't know how you pulled it off, Tachi. This is quite a tour de force. When I look at the lineup of the first group and second group, you have the very best, the best of the best. And so I just want to thank you, but thank everybody for a wonderful meeting. I stayed through all 4.5 hours. It's been worthwhile. Thank you. Good night.